On to the Fulham preview. It's the final chance to put some points on the board before Christmas. Trip to Fulham on Sunday afternoon. Again, another great one. What have you made of their season, Steve?
They've been good.
Yeah.
Surprisingly so, I think, because, I mean, basically the last 2 summers they've lost basically their most important player, and they don't seem to have properly replaced them, and yet they don't seem to have, nobody seems to have noticed.
Who was the previous summer? Obviously,
Mitrovic.
Of course, yeah.
So Mitrovic went summer before last.
And João Palhinha.
João Palhinha has gone to Bayern Munich, and they didn't really replace him. They've not brought anybody for that.
Sander Berg, wasn't it?
Yeah, but he's not really a holding player.
No.
And they basically just changed the way their midfield works. And yeah, and
they benefited from the re-emergence of Raul Jimenez, haven't they?
Yes.
After a long time out with what was effectively a bad head injury.
He basically looked like he was done at the top level, and quite frankly. And yeah, he's come back. I mean, this season especially has looked very good. But yeah, they just look a really good all round team, and it's. I mean, Marco Silva is a manager who has learned. He has adapted over the years, because his early clubs in the Premier League, he had obviously Watford, where it's always a little bit random, and you never quite know when you're going to get sacked.
Revolving door.
And Everton. So he's actually had really poor club choice in that sense, because I mean, those clubs have just been kind of permanent basket cases. But he seems to have settled at Fulham, and I mean, he had a good run at it from a sort of running start, if you like, because he had the Championship season with a squad that was obviously insanely too good for that league. Yeah. Mitrovic scores 45 goals, and it's quite easy at that level, isn't it? But he's made them into basically the most mid-table team possible.
Yeah.
Which is a genuine compliment.
Yeah.
Because
it's where we want to be.
Oh yeah, but I mean, they're not going to be in any danger of going down anytime soon. They will, at home, they will give the big clubs a game. Away, they've usually been a little bit flaky, although obviously not at the weekend, where they got a good result at Anfield. So yeah, they're a good all-round team, and yeah, they're gonna cause us problems.
I think I look at Fulham as quite a favourable club as well, to be fair. The location's obviously perfect for attracting players from other leagues. They've got a lot of money for a mid-table team.
But they do shit on their fans massively.
Yeah.
In what way?
Ticket pricing.
Yeah. They've got the Riverside Stand, right, which is like a
£3,000 season ticket.
Yeah. It has a swimming pool though.
But in like
cool.
individual match day prices of like £100 and stuff, and it's just. And
is that because of the capacity though?
Well, no, it's because they think people will pay it.
Yeah. Right, and obviously
lots of wealthy people around there.
I mean, to be honest, for the most part, they don't. There are like the corners of that stand are generally empty,
right?
Because there's a limit to how much people will pay, and it is still Fulham. They are still a relatively small club in the grand scheme of things.
So they've got a couple of offcuts from Arsenal this year, haven't they? Obviously, Emil Smith-Rowe, Reece Nelson. There's a couple others.
Leno in goal. It was
Leno,
ex-Arsenal. Yeah.
And I like Anthony Robinson, left back.
Yeah, Robinson's been brilliant.
He's the captain, isn't he?
Yeah. He'll be the one that they'll sell next summer.
He was awesome against Liverpool.
They've got a lot of experienced players who have done it at Premier League level. Like Castagna, they signed from Leicester. Yeah. Decent player. And they got big old Traore as well, haven't they?
Yeah.
Well, and they got what's his name, Anderson, back from Palace, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, whether he'll be fit enough for the weekend, I'm not sure. He missed the last couple of games, didn't he?
Alex Iwobi's another one. He seems to.
He's scoring goals.
He seems to be doing really well. I've always thought he was a very sort of mid player when he was at Everton.
Well, they paid 40 million quid for him, which I imagine is a lot of pressure for a player who's not that good.
But then this season he's looked really good. And in the highlights of the game they had against Liverpool at Anfield at the weekend, he looked very, very good.
They gave him a good game, didn't they?
Yeah, and it was just that they had that sort of pace and power, which is exactly what we didn't have yesterday. So yeah,
and which terrifies
us.
It's not an easy one, is it?
No, absolutely not.
Difficult one for us to predict from our point of view, obviously, because we don't know what any of the variables are going to be.
We've still got the same players, mate.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, predict the result maybe, but like Wednesday will change things. I imagine a little bit as well.
Yeah.
And then obviously, we might even have a new manager in the
Do you think they might get someone in that?
Well, I just think it's a Sunday game, isn't it? I mean, I don't have any information on that. I'm just saying, but I could easily see them making the appointment Thursday or Friday, given by how quickly things have gone. You'd like to think that they're doing a bit of work on it before manager's been sacked. So could there be someone in for Saturday morning, Friday evening? Possibly. Otherwise it's going to be another Simon Ross masterclass. But
do you think they had a plan? I mean,
well, I think they've had long enough to make one. So if they didn't have a plan, I'd be disappointed.
Yeah.
For
You
sure.
weren't convinced they had a plan last time.
But would you be surprised if they didn't?
Well,
Because
no,
there's
but
no-
you-
And it was properly on the hoof.
Because there's
We
no
had this
Jason,
argument last
there's no
time,
Jason
because-
Wilcox, is there? So
No.
there's no who's making the appointment at the end of the day.
well, it'd be a Sport Republic, wouldn't it? So it'd be Rasmus Ankerson, it'll be Phil Parsons, Henrik Kraft.
But Ankerson apparently isn't around. He's basically
But he's still doing
in Turkey, isn't
he's
he?
still doing their transfer negotiations, so he's clearly got a certain level of. But he's done well with those. In terms of Romeo Lavia, 53 million quid when they were going to accept 35, for example, at one point in the window. So he's clearly involved enough for that to be part of his remit. So therefore, I'm pretty sure, as one of the co-founders of the owners, he will have some say on the manager.
But you don't think they've got a plan? You're not sure?
I don't know. As you say, I wouldn't be surprised.
They've had 16 games to work.
Yeah, I
with
wouldn't be surprised. They should, because you're not doing your due diligence if you don't.
Yeah.
From about 8 games in, there was even further back than that, there was a real chance that this was going to go pear-shaped.
Yeah.
So you should have been sounding people out. Would Graham Potter, would you be interested, Graham, if it comes to it? So
Hello?
you
Hello?
would hope,
Absolutely not.
you would hope, but you would hope they would have that information, so they don't
Sorry,
waste any
Ron.
more time. So they're not ringing him tomorrow, for
Yeah.
example, and say, well, now we're totally screwed, and we've only got 5 points from 16 games. Any chance?
Yeah, name your price.
Yeah, you would want to have that information already.
We disagreed on this last time, but because you didn't like the plan, and the plan didn't work. But Nathan Jones was in the building 3 days after Ralph Hasenhüttl was sacked. He was in the building watching their next game.
Yeah.
And this is the same owners, right? So if they did that last time, they had a plan ready. You'd like to think they can replicate it again.
That was based on the
hopefully
stats,
with slightly
wasn't
better
it?
results.
Was that not they were looking for someone that could improve our set pieces and?
Well,
someone that had a
I'm
good record?
sure they're using stats to make this appointment as well. But that's not something to be feared. Like just because they're using numbers, every club uses numbers.
And then Nathan Jones went on the piss for 5 weeks during the World Cup, did absolutely nothing, and we came back and we were just as bad and nothing had changed.
It comes back to the point earlier, though, doesn't it? That because they've got appointments wrong, we're all going to be a little bit nervous, and perhaps somebody that will come in and do a really good job, we're just going to be a bit more apprehensive because of the way they've handled it previously.
Yeah.
Nobody sat around this table and probably watching the stream trust them to make the right appointment, and will be pleasantly surprised if they do.
I think it's remarkably difficult to make the right appointment in this circumstance.
Yeah.
I think it's really not ideal to be looking for a manager when they probably know you're going down. And you've
6
got,
months in advance.
You've got 6 months to get through, and you don't have an unlimited checkbook. I think it's very difficult to appoint a manager in this circumstance. So, yeah, on that, it is hard to have too much faith. But the Russell Martin appointment worked, ultimately. The remit was get Southampton back to Premier League.
Yep.
That was a good appointment in the end. He took a really shattered squad. And
But that wasn't an ownership appointment, was it?
No, that's a good point. That was a previous man. That is a good point. So I don't think it's right to say that Russell Martin was a bad appointment. No. Just because this season's gone incredibly pear-shaped.
We'll do some score predictions, because that's always a fun way to end
Why?
the podcast. You won't be surprised to hear there were no correct scores in the league this week. 19 people.
Actually, I'm quite
I'm
surprised.
surprised by that. Yeah.
19 people did get a Tottenham win, though.
Out of how many? 19?
Yeah, probably, yeah. So Fulham, I think I'll get in early with a 1-0 win to Fulham. Let's go around the table, Alfie. I'll start with you.
Yeah, I don't see any goals coming, so I'll follow suit and go for a 2-0 Fulham.
2-0. Steve?
I think there will be a little bit of a reaction. It won't be enough, but there'll be some sort of reaction. We will score, but we will still lose. So 3-1.
3-1. Glenn?
Paul Amo-Ameyaw masterclass.
Now I know you're not taking this seriously.
No, 3-0 win. No.
But if there's a new manager in by Friday evening, then I'd like to change my prediction, because you think there'll be a bit of a reaction, as you said, but going off of what we are now.
Bearing in mind, we don't know what's going to happen, so I will predict this as if it was a Russell Martin game, and I'll say 3-1 to Fulham.
Okay. Anything else that you two want to see this week, just before we finish?
Well, I've got the press conference with Simon Rusk at 3 p.m. On Tuesday, tomorrow, which will be interesting. I don't know. It's still a difficult one, isn't it, really, with an interim manager. They're probably not going to be at liberty to say too much about the situation.
Yeah.
I imagine that'll be a busy press conference.
It will be a busy press conference, and it'll be our first sort of chance to put any questions about what's happened in the last 24 hours to the club in some way. So that would be interesting. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Will the Athletic be there chasing ambulances like they do?
I couldn't comment on that, Glen.